So the final type of inheritance problem that I'll have you work is called a dihybrid cross. And this is more complicated than the ones that you have seen thus far. As you can tell from the size of the square, it's a little more involved. With a dihybrid cross, we're going to look at two genes, each with two alleles at the same time. So using the example from the Christmas cactus, you'll recall that we had one allele for flower color, and there was a big P allele and a little p allele. And we're going to add another gene with two alleles, we'll call them big G and little g, for leaf color. So big G is green leaves, it's dominant, to little g, which is variegated leaves. And variegated leaves, if you don't know what that is, you've probably seen this like on pothos plants. It's where the leaves are partly green, partly white, or some other color. And again, it's important to note that this is classic Mendelian inheritance, so we've got a dominant allele and a recessive allele for our green leaves. So what's important to understand with the dihybrid cross is that when we set up our Punnett square, we're not simply going to take these letters and plug them in for the row and column headings. We have to kind of step back for a second and think about this in terms of how individuals are producing gametes, because those row and column headings are the gametes of the parents. And when the parents make egg or sperm cells, they are going to pass on one copy of every gene in every gamete. And so that means that our row and column headings each need to have one of these P's and one of these G's. So we're going to look at combining the P's and the G's in every possible way. Okay? So we could take a big P with a big G. That's one possible gamete, egg or sperm cell. We could take the big P with a little g. Again, another possible gamete. We could put the little p with the big G, or we could put the little p with the little g. Okay, so 4 possible gametes from a parent who is heterozygous for each of these two traits. So let's use an example where we are crossing two plants that are heterozygous for both of those traits. So we've already figured out what the possible gametes are for each parent, and now we're simply going to fill this in to our row and column headings. Okay, so this is how our setup will look for our Punnett square, and at this point it's just a matter of filling in all the squares. Now when you fill in the squares with dihybrid cross, it's important to keep the P's and G's together. In other words, I'm going to look at the two P's first, and then I'm going to look at the two G's after that. So I'll have two big P's and two big G's. Okay, so we're going to fill them in like this. And here is our completed chart. So you'll see there's 16 potential offspring. And when we want to determine what is our phenotypic and genotypic ratios, we're simply just going to have to tally the individuals for each category. Okay, so I'm going to solve with you how to get the phenotypic ratio of all these potential offspring. So there's really 4 possible phenotypes with these plants. They can either be purple, flowered, green-leaved. They can be purple flowered with variegated leaves. They can be white flowered with green leaves. Or they can be white flowered with variegated leaves. Okay? So let's start with the purple-green ones. To be purple and green, the individuals are going to need to have a big P and a big G. And it doesn't matter whether they have two big P's, two big G's, as long as they have one of each, they'll be purple and green. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to look at our 16 offspring and look for all of the ones that are purple and green. So for instance, this individual is purple and green, and I'm just going to tally them up. Okay? So I'll keep going here. Okay, so 9 out of our 16 possible offspring have got the phenotype of being purple flowered with green leaves. Now for purple and variegated, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to need to have a big P and then 2 little G's to be purple and variegated. So big P and 2 little G's. So there's the first one. So 3 of those. Let's do the white and green. To be white and green, we're going to need to have 2 little p's and 1 big G. So 2 little p's and at least 1 big G. So 3 of those as well. And then finally, white and variegated, we need to have both little p's and both little g's, and there's just one possibility there, right here. Okay, and so what we see is a 9:3 to 3:1 ratio for the phenotypes of our offspring in our dihybrid cross. Okay, so you can use this information to complete the dihybrid cross question. Okay, we're done.